All right, g'day runners, buenos dias, hello. It's Friday. We are kicking off the United Airlines NYC Half week with another course strategy at the top of the hour. We're really happy to be here today. I'm, of course, Roberto Mange, NYRR coach, and with me today is my co-host and my friend, Ben Delaney, as well as our good friend, which we're super excited because we haven't seen him in person since 2020 or so, Mr. Juan Frias, New Balance tech rep. How are you doing today, Juan?
I'm doing well, excited to be here. I'm glad I get to see some familiar faces that I haven't seen in like about 2 years, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a lifetime.
And you know, like we all look more or less the same. Juan is obviously kitted out in some awesome New Balance gear, which he'll tell us about. And as I've jokingly said off camera, there's a slight chance I might steal some of it from him because it just looks super fresh. But again, let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, send them our way. Throughout the show, we'll take pauses along the way and answer your questions, as well as have some questions for Juan, who will be running it this year. So maybe some of the course strategy we talk about today will help him. But of course, he's run the race many times. And as he said, he's run all the New York Roadrunners races. So feel free to send him questions about gear, questions about the course, advice, because Juan knows it all as well. But yeah, so we're super happy to do that. But before we start the course strategy, which we're going to help you mile by mile, kilometer by kilometer, we always have 3 rules that we kind of talk about at the top of any show, any course strategy, whether it's a marathon or any half marathon. And I'll go over 3 of them right now, and I'll kick it to Ben and Juan. So the first one is nothing new on race day. They'll explain what that means. The next one is avoid the race before the race. And then the third one is don't go out too fast. So we'll kick it off. Ben, nothing new on race day. What does that mean?
Nothing new on race day. I mean, obviously Juan's wearing the Fly jacket this morning. We love it. I mean, the New Balance gear is amazing. Buy it, hold it, wait for it till after the race. Whatever you've been training in, that's what you want to wear on Sunday come race day. Anything new at this point, you know, put it up, hold it up. It'll be waiting for you when you're done with the race on Sunday. Right now, everything should be tried and true, from shoes, the socks, your shorts, your leggings, your top, whatever you're going to wear. If you're wearing a hat, everything should be tested at this point, because anything in that regard is going to be new. You don't want to wear it, put it aside, but definitely buy some of this gear, because Juan's looking pretty fly today, my friend. Feeling good?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that sentiment. It's like you never know like what's going to happen, but you've gotten into this race, you know weeks in advance that, hey, this is going to happen. So make sure you test things out, right? Like whether these weather conditions are looking better this weekend. So make sure that you have everything set already. Don't wait for the night before to like lay everything out and say, hey, I lost my shoe. Where's my shoe? So that's probably happened to me maybe 1 or 2 times.
Oh, yeah. No, speaking from experience. So somebody like you, Juan, obviously you're a New Balance rep. You have access to all the gear, but you've also been training for this race. You've run it before, and you will be running again on Sunday. How far out, kind of following your own advice, how far out before the race do you already know what you're going to wear as far as shoes, tops, especially with tops, because, you know, the race starts early in the morning, it might be chilly, but then obviously as the day goes on, the temperatures will rise. So for someone like you, and also giving advice to our audience, how far out do you kind of get that sorted?
So to be honest, I kind of have my shoe already in my mind, especially after like a lot of the long runs that I'm doing, or a lot of the prep work, I would say, like weeks in advance. Like I'll start doing some of my runs and I'll see how I feel in certain shoes, and I'll kind of rotate out, and then I'll find the shoe that works for me. And like either if I'm deciding to race the course, or probably like what I'm going to do this weekend is maybe like a jog, take a lot of pictures on the course. So if you see me, wave, say hello, jump in my selfies. I'll probably be alive for a few moments, but I think like at least like 2 to 3 weeks out, I will already know like what shoe I'm wearing. Now, as far as apparel goes, I should listen to rule number 1, but I can't. I love the New Balance singlets. So shout out to the apparel team. They come up with some really great items. So if you haven't checked out the expo already, go take a look at some of the singlets. There's a really cool print on some of our singlets that have like the map of NYC. So that's probably what I'm going to be wearing. And I think I'm comfortable because I wear a lot of singlets from New Balance. So I agree with that sentiment of nothing new on race day. However, if I know I've worn this before and it's always worked for me, that's kind of like my go-to.
Yeah, I think the final thing about nothing new on a race day also goes with your race day nutrition. You've obviously been training with the foods you're going to eat before the race, during the race. Stick to that as well. We have a wonderful new gel and bar sponsor, Science and Sport, and they will be out on the course somewhere between mile 6.4 and 6.7. If you've been training with it, they'll be on course. Kudos to you. You'll be able to grab some of the flavors that are out there for that final boost along the FDR and up into Central Park. But if you haven't tried that yet, recommend maybe grabbing some for later, maybe for your next training cycle. Stick with what you know, because the last thing you want is have some GI issues as you come up through Times Square. You want to have a good race, not have to make a potty stop at the last minute, folks. So.
Yeah, there you go. And I could certainly attest to those awesome commemorative singlets and jerseys that New Balance puts out, because last night when I was packing for the race this weekend, I actually currently have packed 3 jerseys. I'll make a morning up decision, but one of them was actually the 2018 United Airlines NYC Half New Balance edition, and it's a cool design. I can't even describe it, but for those of you who have it, you know what I'm talking about. And the other ones are obviously repping the group training team out there. So we'll see. But so cool. We got number 1 out of the way. Number 2 is avoid the race before the race. So Ben, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the race before the race. You're only getting credit for 13.1 miles here, folks. There's no reason to have to rush around, race around to get yourself to the start village or to the start line. So the night before, map out where you're going, what subway you're going to take. If you're doing bag check, you have everything in your bag you're going to be dropping off. You have your label affixed to it. That way, that's done. Put aside. Have your clothing laid out. A lot of people do the flat runner. I'm not a big flat runner person. People do the flat runner. They take a picture of it. They post it up on Instagram or social media. Make sure you have all your stuff laid out. You should have everything done, whatever you're going to eat the night before, because you want to wake up and be as calm as you can. You don't want to be having to sprint around or race around trying to find the shoes you're going to wear, as Juan has tested before. Sometimes it happens, folks. Maybe you put them somewhere else. The socks you want to wear, have it all ready to go. That way, when you wake up, you can just grab and go. Make sure you know what subway train you're taking. If you're going to be dropping a bag, you want to be on the Q train. If you're not going to be dropping a bag, you want to be on the F and G train. Make sure you check out how long it may take you to get down there, including the walks maybe from the train to the start area to get through security. That way, you have plenty of time to get into the start village, find some space, sit down, use the restroom if you have to, grab some water. But again, keep it easy, keep it straightforward, because who wants to run around and get credit for miles? It's not going to be on the race day. So.
Yeah, exactly. You want to try to stay as stress-free as possible. And then we have the United Airlines NYC Half app, which I recommend everybody download, whether you're a spectator or you're a competitor. For people who love and, want to support Juan, you download the app, you put his first and last name, Juan Frias, or you put on his bib number, and then you could track him or obviously your friends and family, and it'll show you when they start the race, when they hit the mile markers, and the projected finish time. It'll also have some other handy things that this also has. This is a handy pocket guide, so I kind of joke around. This is like the app for old school people. You kind of flip it, you can see I start in wave 1, what corral, what time. So this will be available. This is available on the website, but it's also available at the experience, which, by the way, I want to make sure people know. Go down to the experience to pick up your bib. You have to obviously pick a time slot to go. Do not go to the NYRR Run Center. We have heard a few people being going there to pick up their bibs, and that is actually where you would go for our typical weekly races. But for our marquee events, we typically have an experience, an expo, or pre-party. So go down to the experience, and you'll see the running lab. The New Balance is there. So cool. We got that out of the way. Nothing new on race day. Don't go out too fast. And now we're going to start into the core strategy, which will include actually, no, nothing new on race day. Avoid the race before the race. And now we're going to go into don't go out too fast. So I have to pace myself as well. So
a little faster, Roberto.
Yeah. I'm just so eager to get going. So here we have the graphic. You can see this is the course right here. My colleagues off camera in the studio are going to bring it up. So this is a layout of the course. So as you can see, the early miles include most of the biggest climbs. So this is also another reason why we say don't go out too fast. But why are reasons that people typically go out too fast? And then we'll kick it to Juan, because I'm sure he's got some stories of going out way too fast, putting him on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going too fast. You're excited. I mean, this is a big race. First time since 2019, the United Airlines NYC Half is back. I'm excited. I'm going to have to control myself. I'm part of our pace team this year as well, so I got to make sure that I'm keeping myself under control. Because as Roberto pointed out, the first part of this race is probably the tougher part of the course. You do have a little bit of a downhill when you start. They have a 1K climb to get out of Prospect Park. It's going to be very crowded. You don't want to be bobbing and weaving, trying to get around anybody in front of you. You just want to sit back, relax, take it all in, because you want to save that energy for down the way. There's a little bit of a climb towards the end of the run. The last 5K of this race is pretty challenging. As Roberto had alluded to before, I believe we had Ben True on Monday with one of our calls, and he talked about how the pros approach this race. They use those first 10 miles as kind of a hard run, and then the race is that last 5K. And to do that, that means you have to be controlled. You have to use your energy wisely in your first part of the race. You don't want to burn through all of the fuel you have on board. take it back. I mean, we've all made the mistake. I've gone out too fast. And how much fun is that, Juan or Roberto, when you go out too fast and you get to mile 5 and you're like, wow, here we go. It's going to be a long day.
Yeah, no, like I can imagine like not being in races for so long and just getting that excitement right in the beginning. The gun goes off and you hear so many people cheering and just getting excited for the races to be back. And you're like, oh, I'm gonna do so well, I'm gonna do so well. And then halfway through, you're like, oh, probably shouldn't have done that, but yeah.
Yeah. So again, that happens. But just before I didn't quite jump the gun, but I want to make sure that we also understand that there's health and safety protocols. So obviously, when you go to the experience, you have to wear your face mask, and then the only other place you have to wear it is before the race in the corrals. So that's obviously to safeguard for yourself and other runners. But then once the race starts, you can either discard it or hold on to it and run the rest of the race without a mask. And then when you cross the finish line, which we'll get to obviously at the end, we'll have a goodie bag for you. Our partners from Hospital for Special Surgery will provide hydration, nutrition in there. You'll get a heat sheet, you'll get a medal, but you also have another face mask in there just in case you have discarded your face mask. So yeah, so as we were saying, you don't want to go out too fast. Juan has horror stories, Ben has horror stories. I don't. I've never gone out fast in my life. Wah, wah. But yeah, as we were saying, like these early miles here, you're going up Battle Pass Hill. So we're right around here in Prospect Park. And no matter how fast you go in this early miles, we all have adrenaline. So as Juan was saying, you're probably not going to realize it right away, but later on in the later miles, you're going to feel it. So I'd like to say there's only 2 reasons people around you should be going out faster than you. Number 1, they're faster than you, in which case let them go. You know, they're just a better, have more ability than you at the time. And then number 2, they're going out too fast, in which case let them go because there's a good chance that you will see them later on in the race. So starting out, we run the first couple miles in and around Prospect Park, and we also hit Flatbush Avenue. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Flatbush Avenue. You exit the park and you come up to Grand Army Plaza, the first of the 2 that you will see on this day. You know, you really want to be in control. This is a part of the race where you have done a 5K, you're probably feeling pretty good. The crowd of this part has probably dispersed a bit more. You have more space to run, but now you're going to have a nice long downhill towards the Manhattan Bridge. This is where any time that I want to say you've been held up or get given to what you're going for, you're going to get it back. So again, if you're a minute or so off of your pace at this point or your goal time, it's fine because you're going to have, I mean, look at this picture here. It's a big downhill. You're going to have a lot of area. There'll be a hydration table at the top of the hill. There'll be one about halfway down this hill as well, so you'll be able to get some water or Gatorade. This is where maybe you're taking your first gel as well, putting everything into play. If you're with our NYRR pace team, as you see here, we'll be looking very, very fly in our cool hoop singlet and our pace signs. We'll have our finish time on one side, our per pace per mile on the other as we go out there. Pace team is the best around. They will guide you along the way. I had a lot of questions at the experience yesterday about how the pacers approach this race course. And again, as we showed you, the first 5K has a lot of uphill and downhill. So they're going to be going what's called an even effort. That means if this the pace here is 11:26, so they may be going 11:45 up a hill, but they may be going 11:15 down the hill or 11:10. They're trying to get, this is an average pace of what they're going to do. So again, if you're with the pace team and you look down and you're going slower than maybe you want, you don't have to pick it up. They're going to hit this goal time or about 30 seconds under it. That's what they're shooting for. So if you're with the pace team, trust them. They know what they're doing. They'll be in the corrals. I know we have a corral sign that we can put up at some point during the chat today. If you're going to the experience, come back to the running lab. We'll have all the information there as well. But our pace team know what they're doing. They will guide you on the way. I've used it. Juan, have you ever used our pace team?
Honestly, all the time.
Too much.
Yeah, too much. I get picked up by, like, if I shoot out too hard sometimes, which never happens. My name is Roberto. But,
Yeah. I don't know what this is about.
Yeah, but for Juan, he likes to look good out there in like the first few miles and then not so good towards the second half, and then hold reserve and then pick it up towards the end, hopefully. But it's always great to have those pacers out there, just so that way it reminds me, like, whether I'm either not going as fast as I would like to, or whether I I need to make sure I can try to hang with a group for another number of miles, which is always helpful for me on my end.
Yeah, so excellent. So, we've just run through the first few miles, Battle Pass Hill, which is what is it, 3.4 incline percent?
It's about a 2.4%.
Oh, 2.4%. So
Cat Hill's at 3.7.
Yeah. So Battle Pass Hill is about 2.4 incline. So this is around this area here, 150 feet. And then, you're running up and down Flatbush as well. And then, we get to this critical part of the course, which we'll show you in a second. excuse me, called the Manhattan Bridge. So for those of you who are out of town, it's an awesome bridge that is typically close to pedestrians. So be close to motorists on Sunday. And I mentioned that because somebody asked yesterday, like, will there be cars on it? And I was like, that would be absolute carnage if there are like runners and cars. So the bridge will be closed. We'll show you an awesome video of it soon. But what's also important about this bridge is that at around 5 miles, 5.3 or so, as Coach Liz said the other day, you're climbing, and it's a pretty gradual climb, but it's also right here. As you can see, it's 135 feet, so it's about the second highest point of the course, but it comes in a point of the race where you're pretty far away from the start line, and you still have a lot of running before you. So like if you've gone out too fast, this is where you can start to feel it. So as Coach Ben was saying, our pacers out this bridge are going to once again run on effort versus pace, but also since it's a bridge, you are susceptible to potentially having crosswinds because you're relatively uncovered. So this is a bridge here. I take credit for having filmed this with my private helicopter. But no, it's a great climb, but just be mindful that you might have a headwind or a crosswind. So focus on your effort. And also on top of that, the fact that it's a pretty solid climb and you can see it out in front of you. And it being a bridge, I remember the first year I ran this race, I actually was shocked at how steep it looked. It was one of those optical illusions because you're just looking straight ahead of you coming off Flatbush and you just see this bridge and it just seems like the land is bending. But fear not, take it, literally one step at a time and enjoy that bridge.
I mean, it's about a half a mile climb at about a 1.8 to 2% grade. And as you go over here in Roberto's private chopper, you'll see his private yacht right there in the lower corner. He really want to keep that very low key, folks.
Park it there for the time,
exactly.
Yeah.
He has all the private stuff. It is Coach Roberto. Never goes out too fast. Has all the good swag, but we can be like Roberto, folks. But again, here, as Roberto alluded to, take it easy because you're going to be coming up around 10K as you come off, and you want to feel like this runner here, arms in the air, still feeling confident. You don't want to be struggling. I mean, and we've all hit a race at a certain point where it's just not your day. Dial it back a little bit. You'll come onto the FDR. This is probably the quote-unquote flattest part, but there is still a little bit of a roll to it. But again, here's where you're kind of settling in. Just get the feel as you come onto the FDR. Just before this, we'll have our energy and gel area. So if you're using science and sport, you'll be able to grab some gels. I know Coach Roberto likes to carry an extra garbage bag with him to dump in about half a table. So if you're behind him, you may have to pick up
Don't run behind me. I like to take all the gels.
So if you're going to go out too fast, just make sure you get to that table before Coach Roberto does. You can grab whatever.
I got to feed my kids. Come home like it's Halloween. But actually, I want to kind of highlight something here because, this year we're running and we're looking forward to relatively favorable weather. In the last few editions, 2019 and beyond, we've had years where it was pretty cold, pretty windy, or both, or even rainy. But, one thing we see here is people wearing, long sleeves, long sleeves, arm warmers. So, Juan, can you tell us a little bit about what New Balance has to offer and options of layering up and why it's important to layer up even if you think the weather's going to be favorable?
Yeah, so I love this part of it because it's all about accessories. And my favorite apparel quote is about running. It's there's no such thing as bad weather. It's just improper
clothing choice.
Preparation.
Yeah,
I think it's Bill Bowerman said that.
Bad clothing. Yeah.
We'll see, right? We'll fact check.
It was William Shakespeare, good old Billy Shakespeare with his quotes.
But what I really enjoy is just making sure you carry the essentials, and when depending on the weather, whether it's wearing gloves, whether it's arm warmers, whether it's beanies, and I love wearing beanies because they're really easy to take off once you start warming up, or once it starts getting cold, you can just put it right back on. So that would be my advice in making sure that you're wearing something that it's worked with you. So something that I really enjoy is something that I'm wearing right now. It's basically this packable jacket where it packs into a really cool, just kind of mitten. So nice little bag that you can kind of carry with you and strap it either on your waist, on your side, and then take it off as you need it. So some of those things I think are going to be crucial to race day, especially since it's going to be a really nice day in terms for weather. But then again, when you're on that bridge and you feel that wind chill, that could be another story.
Yeah. And I will say that jacket, not only does it look good, but it looks like it's my size. So just saying, read between the lines, Juan.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to bring me another jacket, because
Juan might be leaving here a little bit lighter of materials.
I might need one.
Yeah. But thanks for that advice. But it's really great advice because we do have people coming from all around the country and all around the world. And some people have been training in places like Florida that we heard about yesterday, where they're coming with extreme heat and humidity. And for us, Northeasters or New Yorkers, who a 60-degree day is going to feel like the tropics, that'll be like, oh, we're out in singlets, like as you mentioned. But for someone in like 60 degrees and in the 40s, as we checked beforehand at start time, will be like probably the coldest temperature they face for the whole season. So it is good to, as Juan said, and as Coach Ben typically says, like layer up. You could always take layers off, but you can't put layers on if you don't have them. And one pro tip, which I hopefully neither of you have ever done, do put your bib number, what you pick up at the experience, in your innermost layer, meaning the layer that you absolutely won't take off, because I've never done it, of course, but I have heard of people who have in the race taken off this long sleeve or what have you. They toss it, no worries, but then they realize that with it went their bib number. So I'm assuming you've never done that one, right? You don't have that on the bucket list?
No, I'm lucky enough that never had that happen to me.
Yeah.
It's always the first for any of us. You
Yeah.
never know.
Cool. So, okay, so we're on the FDR drive. This is a great shot of it. And then, like Coach Ben said, it's relatively flat. So this is an area where if you're running with our pacers or if you're running by yourself, this is a great time to actually focus on your pace. So we keep saying pace and effort, but this is a relatively flat section. So if you're trying to run that 11:26 per mile pace that Coach Ben has over there, this is where you could kind of try to stay on that, because your effort and pace should be pretty closely aligned. There's a few sections like that on the course, but it's also important to know that you are beyond halfway with the race, but there's still plenty of running to be had, and there's a couple of inclines and gradual climbs coming up. So you want to make sure that you get to halfway point, regardless of what your goal time is, feeling comfortable. The halfway point should not feel like you're redlining. The halfway point should feel like almost like I just started, like I'm being warmed up. As Ben said, the other Ben, the quicker of all us Bens, Ben
Wow.
Crew, mentioned that for the elite side, like they try to feel like it's a 10-mile run and a 5K race. If you could do that or something close to that, it'll feel better than having it feel like a 2-mile run and a 10-mile race because you've gone out too fast. So we hit the FDR, and then after that, we come off. This is one of our champions in the past. I won't even say run like her because she is so fast. Like we'll just skip over that unless we don't allow rollerblades on the course. But after coming off the FDR, there is a little bit of a climb because it's an off ramp. So it's typically for vehicles. It'll be close to cars. But then we start to hit like the entertainment areas.
Right.
I think 42nd Street and so on. So can you tell us a little bit about that part?
Yeah, this is the part of the race where the race is on, if you want to put it that way. But you do have a little bit of a kicker as you come off the FDR, as you head up 42nd Street towards Pershing Square and then beyond the Times Square. You see it there on the map at mile 10. Doesn't look like much, but like we talked about, you got 10 miles in your legs at this point. You're probably feeling a little bit, so it's just enough of a climb. It lasts about, I don't know, maybe a few minutes to get up that, but this is where you want to have just good form. Again, depending on which way the wind may be going, you may again get a little bit of wind in your face. It could cool you off a little bit. Again, lean into that wind, just increase that leg drive and just be comfortable. Again, if you're with the pace team, they'll get you up this hill just fine. If you're on your own, be confident. It's going to be uncomfortable for a second, but once you get past Pershing Square, mile 10, it'll flatten out as you make your way towards 7th Avenue. Times Square, they close Times Square twice a year. What is that for? The ball drop, and for this race, United Airlines NYC Half. You want to feel good. This is, if you're struggling, as you see on the picture here, there's going to be lots of crowds out, lots of fans out cheering you on. When you need that boost, you're going to get that boost, whether it be from a gel, a Gatorade, or someone holding a sign that says "Tap here for energy." I always tap that sign. I don't know if you guys do. It makes me feel good.
I've never tapped it just because I feel like I'm running with a handheld hydration device, but I'm also either have my phone, so like my hands are not typically free. But as I said, this is one of my favorite parts of the course, and we'll get even more into Times Square. But Juan, you've run this several times. You're running it on Sunday. Well, hopefully not on Monday.
We'll do it twice. We'll do it twice.
Yeah.
On the FDR Monday.
Monday is the cool down.
We park more.
But yeah, so like, what are you looking forward to the most on Sunday? Obviously, it's our first time in 3 years, and you've run it before. And what are your favorite parts of the course?
I'm from Brooklyn, so I think my favorite part is all of it. I enjoy kind of the beginning, starting
diplomatic,
right?
Yeah.
Like I enjoy starting in Prospect Park just because I ran there all through like my high school career, and I think just going over the bridge is a really awesome feat because when do you get to run through the streets and through the bridges and then the FDR, which I think is super awesome. But one of my favorite parts is probably I love the pictures, and I think Roberto can attest, and Ben because you guys have seen my Instagram and you know how much I love pictures.
Yeah.
But Times Square is great for that photo op. There's going to be so many cameras. NYRR does an amazing job of capturing me every time. And I may slide a 5 here and there for them so they know I'm coming. I think they track me as well. So it's pretty cool just to see all those pictures after the race, and then you try to spot yourself in somebody else's picture, like, oh, I was right next to that person who also ran with me and they helped me out. And I think that's a really cool story and things that I really remember about this race.
Awesome. So yeah, if you find yourself with Juan running around you, be sure to smile, because you'll probably be in one of the NYRR photos or his Instagram. We don't have the graphic or putting his handle underneath, but yeah, it's a cool question. I think we have one question from the audience, but also we want to hear from you again. Shout us out. Where are you watching from? Is this your first half marathon or your first United Airlines NYC half marathon, or any sort of questions you have? Happy to answer those. So the one question we have here is from Fabriz. How steep and long is the Manhattan Bridge? Would you recommend pushing there, or can it turn it into a leg burner?
Yeah, the bridge is not long, but like Roberto had alluded to before, and I mentioned earlier, it's only about a 2% climb for a half mile up, and what goes up must come down. So it's about a mile long. You do not want to go out too hard. It could still be kind of crowded depending on where you are in the race. Again, there's about 7,000 runners per wave, so you may still have a little bit of a crowd around you, which is good because it may give you some protection from the wind. That's the biggest thing about that part of the course, is you will be exposed. So, Ben True talked about it on Monday in the talk we had. You'll lean into the wind if it is going to be bad. You find yourself more exposed if you can't tuck in behind somebody or tuck in with a crowd. But at this point of the race, you should still be very controlled. Don't want to kick it out too hard because it's only mile 5. You still got 7-8 miles to go. And keep it all in there and have a good race.
All right, thank you for that. And again, keep submitting your questions if you have any. We have loads more tips to come, but we also want to kick it to some shout outs. People are letting us know where they're watching from.
We have Mercedes from Queens, first time doing the race. Awesome.
Yeah, we'll see you Sunday.
Definitely.
Fabrice, again, thanks for doing this, guys.
You're welcome.
I mean, that's Fabrice, right? Yeah. I don't know how to read that. There's a vowel. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Traveling runner, Queens in the building.
We had him yesterday.
Yeah. I love people like watching. I think some people are watching from YouTube, so they have like their handles. Some people are watching from Facebook, so
I mean, they're traveling between core strategies. They're traveling from one core strategy to the other. I like that.
Yeah, so. Keeping it virtual. Exactly. All right.
There's Denise. Good morning from New Jersey. I believe we had another repeat core strategy. Hopefully, you're getting some good tips. Hopefully, you're learning some new info. Hopefully, see you at the experience as you come in to pick up your bib today or tomorrow.
All right. So yeah, keep submitting your questions, shout outs. Emmett, first time running again since 2012. Wow.
That was the old course. That was the old course.
Yeah,
on the west side.
Yeah, 10 years ago. Yeah, that was, it was, I think, technically a quicker course, maybe based on course record, but this is one is so much more, to me, similar to the, to the TCS New York City Marathon, in the fact that it crosses different boroughs, different bridges, and it kind of connects different communities. I especially love running off the Manhattan Bridge, and you kind of zigzag through Chinatown, and it's just like, it's just so cool because you just see such diverse different neighborhoods, from Brooklyn, Flatbush, Chinatown, and obviously, then Times Square, which is just not a neighborhood, but is an attraction in and of itself. So.
I know we had Diane, that she was before NYRR here, and it was her 9th overall half, but first time running the NYC half.
All right, so she's got loads of experience.
Loads of experience, first time on this course. Have a great race.
Yeah. Namrata from right here in Manhattan. All right, we got a local.
Way behind us.
Yeah, so they already know what trains they're taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have another question coming live from the studio audience.
FBRZ or Fabrice? Oh, nope, we're going to Asia. How do you avoid tripping over other runners, especially at the start or at the turns?
I kind of want to hear from Juan. Yeah. He's run this a lot.
Yeah, so this is a really great question, and I kind of have my own strategy on how I go through some of the races. I like to make sure I have a good amount of space because I don't want this to happen to me, and I see how easily it can happen just because depending on the group you're in or the corral you're in, some of them may be running a little bit faster than you, like mentioned before, or maybe you're not running as fast as you want. Don't get overwhelmed. Take your time and make sure you give yourself space. I have this personal trait where I like to run on the right side of the courses no matter what, even if it's a little bit longer, maybe like my Strava tells me all the time, I'm off by like 0.5 or 0.6, or I just ran almost an extra mile, but I find peace and comfort knowing that I have this route, or not that many people are gonna run on this side because it's the longer route, but I enjoy it. I don't mind being out there for another mile.
So you're saying you don't recommend zigzagging?
Yeah, I wouldn't. It uses a lot of energy, and I need all the energy I can get right to finish this race.
And one other tip to that, particularly just for the aid stations, because oftentimes where there's a half marathon or marathons, they tend to get crowded. So we'll lay those out, and it'll be, you know, sometimes half a city block long, depending on the mile marker. But it's important to know that you don't have to stop right as soon as you get to the aid station. You could keep running because the tables are pretty long. Sometimes there's water first and Gatorade, but you know, another tip that you could utilize to kind of avoid the bottleneck that occurs is keep running, you know, don't stop at the first section, but also, as Coach Ben likes to point out, just make eye contact, because our fantastic volunteers will be out there. They'll hold it out and they'll say water, Gator, what have you, and you could make eye contact with them, and you could point, you know, if you're running so hard that you're not interested in speaking, you could point to them or say no, and, you know, you'll hand it to you and you could kind of grab it and on the run. And the other thing too is pinch that cup, because this is one of the things I learned way back in the day. If you don't pinch the cup, you grab it, and by the time you try to bring it up to your mouth, you probably already spill half of it, if not all of it. Or if you happen to get into your mouth, you're just gonna essentially waterboard yourself, get it up your nose and your mouth. So that's no fun. So just pinch it, make a little bit of a funnel, put it in your mouth, and then, you know, toss it. So another pro tip, but yeah.
A Gatorade shower at mile 3 is the best.
Yeah.
10 miles of sticky face.
Yeah. So I think we have a couple other questions that just come through.
Diane, hydrating. How much should you drink per day? I guess that leading up to the race is a little bit different than the day of the race.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we say is usually drink to thirst, so how much you're going to want to go. Also, a great way to check is check the color of your urine, depending if it's too dark. If it's the color of lemonade is kind of what you're going for. If you're anything darker than that, you need to have more hydration. Obviously, if you're clear, you're overhydrated, so you can back off a little bit on the water that you're taking in pre-race. During the race, you know, I'm sure as you've done your training, you probably have carried water with you, whether it be in a handheld or a waist belt. One thing to note, we haven't actually talked about, haven't seen the question, but runners, anything over the shoulder is not going to be permitted. So if you're a hydration vest runner or camel pack, you will not be able to bring those with you on the race course. It has to be handheld or around the waist. Or again, as Roberto alluded to, we'll have Gatorade and water on course for you to grab. But how much you choose to drink, obviously during the race, hopefully you've had that mapped out in your pre-race, but in the days leading up to that, especially if you're traveling, everyone knows you get on the plane, you may get a bit dehydrated. We had loads of runners coming in yesterday, one from Utah, some from San Francisco, some Florida, Atlanta. So make sure if you're traveling the next day or so, just stay hydrated. Easiest way is just to check the color of your urine, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, and I'll add to that is the answer is so individual, because, you know, I might be on the course for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, 2.5. So it's like, depending on how long you're going to be on the course, which obviously you have a relative idea, that also dictate how much you should be drinking. But also don't just drink water, you know, drink an electrolyte-rich drink. That way you can kind of help replace the minerals and nutrients that you lose. But don't drink yourself to, you know, overhydration either. Make sure that you drink, you know, just enough and drink a bit along the way. So we have about 7 aid stations, so if you're not carrying your own hydration, you could hit those up, and that should help carry you through regardless of what your finishing time is.
Yeah.
Erica, running for the first time, what are the advantages or disadvantages of following a pacer? I think you two can handle this.
Yeah, what do you think, Juan?
Yeah, I think the great advantage of following a pacer is you have that group that will get you to the finish line at that specific race time that you're trying to go to. I think that some of the disadvantages, which I don't think there really are a lot of, would be whether or not they start off a little bit faster than you typically would or a little bit slower than you typically would. And I think that could probably throw you off if you're not used to just changing your pace or being able to keep that average pace for a longer time. So typically me, even though I like to shoot out at some races, I do like to start off a little bit slower and then gradually progress as I run, which is kind of like the way I strategize my race strategy. And I know everyone's different, so I know like keeping that same pace for that duration of time may be a little bit harder for me as opposed to just building up to it, which I think I enjoy a little bit more. So I conserve a little bit more, so that way I can just save it for towards the second half or towards a little bit closer to the end in my races.
Yeah, and if you haven't picked up your bib yet and you're still coming to the experience at Center 415 to grab your race gear, in the running lab downstairs, our pace team will be there today and tomorrow. They were there yesterday as well. Not every pacer is going to be there. Maybe not the pacer of the time that you're going for will be there. But talk to the pace team that is there because they will give you the information of what their strategy will be. Like Juan said, maybe it isn't what your goal is. Maybe it's not how you set up your race. So maybe it won't work into what you're going for. That's fine. But if it aligns with what you're doing, as I like to say, they're going to guide the way. All you have to do is follow. They make it really easy. I use one of our pacers in Brooklyn 2018. They got me to mile 9, and then I was able to do my race from mile 9 to the end. That's exactly what I wanted to do, and it worked out to perfection that day. Does it work out every day that way? No, that day was a good one. One disadvantage that I've seen both as a pacer and as a runner, especially for the bigger goal times, your hour and a half, your 140s, 145, the 2-hour one especially, is just the sheer size and volume of the number of runners that will try to be around that pacer. It will be crowded. You don't have to be right next to the guy with the sign or the woman with the sign as they run. You can be back a little bit. As long as you have eyesight of where they are, you're going to be good. Because again, they're trying to come in 30 seconds under what's on their pace time. So if you can see them, a little bit down the road, you'll be fine. Again, the groups will shed out as time goes by. You may find yourself getting closer throughout the race. But if you do start with a pacer, talk to them beforehand to get what their strategy is. And then if you do, just maybe be prepared for a little bit of a crowd to start and just settle in and relax.
I will say there's zero disadvantage of following Ben as a pacer because you're the 2-hour, 5-minute pacer on Sunday?
Yes, I was promoted to 205.
Okay,
I was
so
210,
if you're trying to run 205, as you can see on the screen, our pace team, and you find yourself with Ben, there's no disadvantages, only advantages. So yeah, this is our pace team. Again, this is also available at the experience. So if you're watching at home, you want to take a screenshot, go for it, but it'll also be available at the experience. So what this means, this is actually just the waves and corrals where the pacers will be. So there's a difference between what you're seeing here and what you actually see as far as like your wave and start time. So this is just to indicate what pacers are in which corrals and which waves. So make sure that you have that because sometimes we see people think like, hey, I'm in wave 1 and I start at 7:20, but I don't see a pacer. Well, it's like, what corral are you in? So some corrals will have 2 pacers, some will only have 1, but regardless, if you find yourself with a pacer, you'll be in fantastic hands. So.
Yeah, and the last thing on the pacers here, if the pacer is behind you, yes, you can drop back. You can drop back waves, you can drop back corrals. You are not able to jump forward. So again, if you're looking for a pacer that's a corral or 2 in front, you cannot jump into the corrals in front of you, but you're able to step back. If you have friends, you're able to step back. I always tell people, put yourself in a position for success. You know the race that you've trained for. We'll have pace bands as well. I don't think we have any pace bands, but you can grab a pace band that will give you all the mile and the kilometer splits, so you can have that as well. But these pacers here are the best around. Myself, I'm outside of that group, I guess. But
no, you're there. You're a solid
no, again,
pacer.
the only error on this map here we like to point out in wave 4, the 3-hour, it says both pacers will be, or all 3 pacers are in corral E. Actually, pacer Anthony will be in corral F. So there will be, again, there is a pacer in every single wave, every single corral. Come to the experience, come down to the running lab, talk to us. Our coaches will be there. We'll give you all the tips and tricks for a successful race day.
All right, I think we have a few more questions coming in.
Louis, I did a run last week and the hills were steep and short. Is it easier to run a long gradual incline or a shorter steep one? I guess it depends on what you're kind of geared for, if you're and what you're used to. Most of the hills here on this course, the one up to Pershing Square off of the FDR, notwithstanding, are pretty gradual. There's nothing really steep. Everyone talks about the Central Park hills. We will not be doing Cat Hill or Harlan Hill, the Three Sisters. The hill in Prospect Park, we come out right after you start the race, after your first quarter mile. It's a 1K climb. But again, it's about a 2% grade, 2.5% grade, so it's not that steep. And again, it's the first part of the race. You're probably not even going to feel it. So is it easier one way or the other? I would prefer a long gradual as opposed to a short steep one. I can kind of get a rhythm. I don't know, do you gentlemen have a preference?
Yeah, I think it depends on how I'm feeling on the day. I think if I'm racing somebody where time doesn't matter, I like a long gradual one because I feel like it gives me time to really put the screws to them and just destroy them. But if I'm running a race and I'm going after a time or pacing somebody, I'd rather it just be short and steep. We get out of the way, we suffer for 10 seconds or whatever, and then we're done. So I kind of think of something like Harlem Hill. You're coming up those, that's pretty long, but then suddenly it turns short and steep to the very top, and then you have a long downhill, but then the Three Sisters are like, my opinion of a long gradual, where like you're just grinding and grinding, you're trying to get into a rhythm, and you can't. So again, I think it depends on how fit you are and what your ultimate goal is.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think you look at the races and what you're getting into, and I think there's not a lot of steep hills in this race, but I would much prefer going like that long, gradual hill just because I know I don't have to use that much energy, I would say, or I won't feel depleted as much as if I do something that's really steep. And I know I always get exhausted at the top of the hill where I need to just do a refresh and take some time to like get back into a good groove, as opposed to if I'm doing a really long hill. I know like I can work at it, I can slow down a bit, catch my breath, and just get ready for once I get to the top of the hill, and just hopefully there'll be a downhill right after that, so that way I can regain a lot of that momentum back and pick up some of that time that I may have lost on that uphill.
Yeah, and the other tip I would say, as a runner, especially in your case, find out what your weaknesses are, what you don't enjoy doing, and work on those in training in the weeks and months leading up to your next goal race, because that way it really won't matter. You'll be able to adjust on the fly. This course has a few steep hills. This course has gradual long hills. Whatever it has, you will have a more robust tool set and skill set. So just work on whatever your weaknesses are. Don't neglect them. Oftentimes as runners, we think we're going out and we're training, so we're getting fitter, which we are, but we just tend to focus on the runs that cater more to our strength, and that's natural human behavior. But if you know that steep hills hurt you, incorporate them more into your training or specifically your long runs.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah. Chris, if I follow a pacer, at what point in the race should I assess whether I should push faster than the pacer?
Yeah, like I alluded to a bit earlier, it's really up to you. But I mean, in most races, they have a half marathon. I break it up, as Ben True alluded to in the call we had on Monday, was 9 or 10 miles of a hard run, and then 3 to 4 miles is the race. In 2018 in Brooklyn, when I used one of the pacers that we have, that's exactly what I did. I literally had them guide me to mile 9 of that race, and then I said, okay, it's time to do a tempo run to finish off this race here. Do I have the energy, the strength to do that? But I had to, A, assess where I was to make sure that my fueling was good and my strategy was in place. And then B, be confident, because you're going to be on your own. You've trusted someone to get you to that point. Now it's up to you to take what you want. You have to kind of put your fate in your own hands. But again, if you're feeling good, and take the risk. I mean, if the pacer catches back up to you, mile 12 and a half, well, it's okay. You're still going to get the time. Maybe not the time in front of that maybe you were shooting for, a little bit under what they had. But again, I would just kind of see where you are on the FDR, see how you feel. And then as you come off the FDR and you make that climb up to Pershing Square, the final 5K, you'll pass mile 10. See where you are and give it a go.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for that. Keep submitting your questions. We'll get back to those. But speaking of feeling good, this is actually, again, one of my favorite parts of the course. I like Manhattan Bridge, but I also don't like it, whereas as far as Times Square, I love this. As you can see, we have the Rising New York Roadrunners kids race, as they are running about 1,500 meters or 1.5 kilometers or almost a metric mile. And they're running all out. They don't care about pacing, and those cheeky kids are going to be cheering you on, but also going to be challenging to race. So as you can see here, these kids are racing each other. They're flying here, and us runners, we've gotten here, we've got 10, 11, however many miles in our legs, and it's really a great atmosphere because, again, as we tend to say, or maybe Ben already said it, Times Square is only closed twice a year for the ball drop, New Year's Eve, and then obviously for this race. And I prefer much better to be here amongst running healthy people, even if it's 20+ thousand people, than 100,000 people jammed up into one square block. So when you're running here, use the energy from the crowds. The crowds will also be pretty well packed. Cheer on the kids. They'll be cheering you on. And yeah, I mean, you've never run the kids race, right, Juan? I'm not sure how far back you go.
I tried to sneak in one year, as I recall, but
they check ID.
they saw my hair and they're like, it's not gonna cut it.
You don't look school age, but
no.
Yeah. So as Coach Ben was saying earlier, and kind of to that question we had about the Pacers, this is so little left to go, about 2 miles, 1.5, again, depending on where you are on 7th Avenue, that you can start to really focus on doing that mental math that we all do. It's like, okay, I have 2 miles to go. I'm right on pace. Can I hold on, or should I be able to pick it up? There's a little bit left in the race where you can start to really kind of not focus too much on pace, because at this point you're really in that quote-unquote racing zone. So just make sure that you get to this point, as we were saying earlier, a 10-mile hard run, but control, and then a 5K race or even shorter. And then after this, Ben, where do we head to?
We head to 7th Avenue. Actually, we're on 7th Avenue here. We're going to be heading over to Central Park. We'll hit up on Central Park South as we make our way to the second Grand Army Plaza of our day as we make our way around, and then we'll be coming up behind the Central Park Zoo. This is mile 12. The front of this pack here, they're looking fit, they're looking fly, they're looking good. The gentleman on the right, I have felt that way before. This is, sometimes it goes that way. It's not your day. You're struggling a little bit. It's okay. But again, you want to get here. You have about a mile to go. Again, the question we had just before this about the gradual hill, this will be a gradual hill behind the zoo as you go up. It's kind of a two-tiered little kicker as you go up. The last thing you want at mile 12 of any race is to have to do a little bit of an incline, but there will be a little bit of a kicker here. The last couple miles of this race is a bit of a challenge. You do finish uphill. We'll get to that in a second, but mile 12, you come behind the Central Park Zoo. There'll be a little bit of an incline, but again, settle in. You've got this. This woman here, she's on East Drive in Central Park as we make our way around to 72nd Street. She knows the end's near, feeling good. That's how I want to feel on Sunday.
Yeah,
Monday too, for that matter.
I think she went to the
Monday and Sunday, really.
Well, Juan is running on Sunday and Monday, but yeah, I mean, she looks like she's gone to the Juan Frias School of Photography, race photography. So yeah, you want to be feeling good, but also, as I was saying, and Coach Ben just said, as you can see, there's a lot of gradual climbing, off the FDR. This is all gradual, but obviously this is not to scale, but as you can see, there is climbing, but also at this point, you are more or less racing. So, when you get to mile 12, for those of you who are familiar with Central Park, you'll enter the park and you will actually be able to almost start to hear the finish line, assuming there's runners in front of you. And that also helps pull you. You have this, our wonderful announcers over the megaphone, the speakers, and you can start to hear the music. So you will be going around the lower loop for those people familiar with Central Park. And then maybe you could talk about this a little bit while I Bob Ross this for us.
As we come around the final loop, we will making our way through some part of Manhattan there. I'm not sure where we
do not go to the ocean.
I think we're in the Bronx at that part of the course. That's in September, I believe, we do that race. But as we come around on mile 12, you'll be on East Drive. If anyone is familiar with the park, it is a lower loop. You will pass Summer Stage, and then you'll make a sweeping left-hand turn onto the 72nd Street Transverse. Small little uphill again. It's very short, about 100 meters at the most. It'll flatten out as you go by Bethesda Fountain on your right, the mall to your left. Then you'll have a kind of a nice kicker downhill to kind of get one last gasp of air, breath of air to get in, because when you do make your final sweeping left-hand turn at mile 13, as NYRR loves to do, we like to make sure all of our marquee events finish on an uphill. For all of you who have done the TCS New York City Marathon, you come into Central Park. Your last half mile is up a hill because that's how you want to finish the marathon. This half marathon, you're on the other side of that hill and tap it on the green as you finish running south. Finishes around 69th Street, 68th Street. But again, this runner here is showing you the proper form, and this woman here has absolutely the perfect finish line form. What is she doing? Her head is up, her arms are up, she's not looking down at her watch. A lot of us run with Strava or Garmin, or as Roberto said, he'll be running with his phone.
Yes.
We have your timing. Don't worry. NYRR invests hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. We have great timing. You don't have to carry your own timing device. We got you covered on that. Cross the finish line. Follow Juan's always good tips and tricks for good race photography. Your head is up. You're smiling. If you're not taking your own picture, we got your marathon photo. Our partner there will be there to get your picture. After you cross the finish line a few feet, then you can look down and stop your watch, because we got your finishing time for you. And then we enter what we affectionately call is the finish area here. As you see over on the left-hand side, there's that like shaded purpley blue area. That is our frozen zone. This is for runners only. This is where you'll be finishing the race and walking down to meet your loved ones as you exit Central Park at 59th Street. The family meetup zone is between, I believe, 62nd and 65th, or 63rd and 65th.
Yep.
As you come out. After you cross the finish line, you will be given a recovery bag, like Roberto alluded to earlier, from our partners at the Hospital for Special Surgery. In that bag will be Gatorade, Flow Water, some snacks, pretzels, and some apples, maybe some other cool stuff. You have been given your medal at this point. Because again, why else do you run a race? You want the medal, right? You want the good New Balance swag that Ron's wearing, and then you want the medal, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like the apple too,
Yeah. So you're someone who eats right away after the race?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm someone who eats all the time. If you have food on the course, find me, please.
Has some extra gels you can throw my way?
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll grab the other bag for Roberto's leftovers.
Yeah. If there's anything left. Well, yeah, it's important, we affectionately call this like the 14th mile, or obviously during the marathon, the 27th mile. It's just really important to realize that, Recovery starts the minute you cross the finish line. So as you can see, we'll have our wonderful volunteers there handing you your finisher's medal, your heat sheets, the recovery bag. But also, if you have checked the bag earlier on in the race, this is also where you can kind of go pick up your bag. And as you can see here, it'll be by zones and bib numbers, so you can look down at your bib because you didn't toss it on the FDR, and you'll know exactly where to go pick it up. But the other thing too, much like the marathon, there is something oftentimes called cell phone saturation. So with about 20,000+ finishers plus spectators, and also in New York City, there's oftentimes poor reception. It's not something we bank on, but so make sure you have a plan for before the race. Make a plan tonight, tomorrow, of where you're going to meet your friends and family, and then have them again download that app. They'll be able to track and they'll know, hey, okay, Juan just finished, so maybe in about 20 or 30 minutes we should expect them at 67th and 5th Avenue. We still don't know where that is, but
coffee shop?
Yeah. Just make a plan. That way you'll be able to meet each other, pick up your recovery bag. And again, if you check your bag, if you do check a bag, I definitely recommend including dry clothing there. We talked about the awesome gear that New Balance has. I think there's an opportunity to, if you have purchased something and you want to look good, New Balance always has those awesome finisher shirts and long sleeves and things like that. This is an opportunity to put it on because nothing new on race day. Your race is over. Now it's time to celebrate. And you might not feel cold after the race, but you will be sweaty. You've run a hard effort. And it's good to kind of get out of that wet clothing and, maybe tell us a little bit about what New Balance has in the terms of gear, finisher shirts and things like that. Because I've actually seen people buy those and wear them before the race, which I always get a kick out of. But, some people are predictive.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of superstitions around like wearing finisher gear before actually finishing the race. But there's some pretty cool swag and some pretty cool T-shirts designs that we have down there at the expo. So if you haven't been to that experience center, go check it out. I know a lot of things are selling out fast. I'll be there today, I think right after this.
Yeah.
And if you see me on the Footwear, come say hi. And then
Footwear?
Yeah.
Footwear. Get the good footwear up there. We wanted the expo
we
map.
got the expo.
Oh, they put the expo map.
Yeah.
Very important part there. Shoes are later.
Yeah, shoot you later.
But yeah, come by the experience, say hi to Juan. But I think speaking about gear, it's always interesting because we were there yesterday, myself and Ben and Coach Steve, and I got to see some of the latest shoes, and sometimes they have there we go, Ben's wearing them on his hands. But yeah, we got to see some of the latest shoes, and I think oftentimes, and maybe you can speak to it, we get excited and we buy shoes, but we don't realize that New Balance does a great job of having shoes for different people, different foot types, as well as even different type of races. Obviously, this being a half marathon or even a marathon. So maybe can you talk a little bit about that? So that way, when people buy shoes or they're looking to choose a pair of shoes, they are maybe more better informed.
Yeah. So good point to that, right?
Thank you.
So there's a lot of different options that you can get in terms of what you're looking for race day or for training. And I would kind of take that into mind when you're purchasing shoes. So we have different options at the Experience Center, and whether it's looking for something for race day, something to wear to run a little bit faster or do a lot of harder efforts, there's some really cool shoes there. We have the RC Elite, and we were lucky enough to get some extra pairs from the 50th anniversary for the New York City Marathon edition. So that's down there. I know it's selling out pretty quickly, and I think many of the people who have done, who are doing this race have done that race, and they didn't get a chance to get it. So we do have that as an option. And then the shoes that Ben and Roberto are pulling up right now. Oh,
there we go.
Multi-screen. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
That's how close we are. Yeah.
Technology. Yeah.
But
Are these the 1080s?
Yeah, so this is the 1080. So 1080 for me is kind of like my go-to shoe. It's a shoe that I'd love to put on mileage on. And for a lot of runners who don't like to wear a racing shoe and just wear their training shoes every day and then run their training shoe into the race that they're doing, to me, this is one of my favorite options to do it on. Whether you want to go a little bit faster, want to go as like a steady run and use this as kind of like your build-up to some other races like the New York City Marathon, kind of early to start getting geared. But I need it.
It's never too early.
It's never too early.
They have a 40-week build-up.
It is never too early to start. So I do advise you to just keep training in the shoes that you're going to be wearing for race day. And just a good reminder so that you know what works and no new surprises, as Roberto said.
Yeah.
Follow rule number 2?
It was number one.
Number one, yeah. It's number one, yeah.
Number one.
Should have followed that
It's in
one.
the top 3, so you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, excellent advice. Thank you, Juan. And I will say, like, for me, the 1080 has consistently been my favorite shoe to wear after a race because it's just so cushiony. And even at the various experiences, especially when I know I'm going to be on my feet a lot. Although I did skate here today in them, and I will say for you skaters out there, they also do well. They're pretty responsive. But cool. Enough about my skate shoes and New Balance 1080s. Let's hear from you at home. I think we have some questions.
Danielle, what are the best spots in Manhattan for spectators? Top of the mark's got to be Times Square, 7th Avenue. And no other reason besides it's a great spot. You're in a good location to see everybody. You'll give runners some good energy as they come through. But more importantly, there is pretty much every subway line that runs on the MTA comes through that area, Port Authority, Times Square. So regardless of probably where you're staying, anywhere here, you'll be able to find your runners through there. Make sure you download the app, put them in the tracker. Like we talked about earlier, I've got about 485 people in my tracker. I trimmed it down from 800. I felt it was a bit much.
Test the bandwidth.
I am. That's the bandwidth about that one. And then the great thing is from there, you're about 42nd Street. The race obviously ends around 68. So if you're going to be meeting your runners after the 1, the A, and the C, you'll be able to hop back on the train to go up to Columbus Circle if you don't want to walk up to meet your loved ones after the race. But you are finish line close from that area as well. If you're going to be in Central Park, obviously Central Park South is a great location right as they come off on 7th Avenue or in the park. Again, there is a frozen zone. The last area on course you'll be able to be close to the runners is around mile 13 as they exit the transverse. Beyond that will be a frozen zone for runners as they make their way towards the finish line.
All right, thank you for that. All right, Juliana, will family be able to see you across the finish line from the family reunion area? I think you somewhat just touched on that.
Yeah, it's going to be down. I mean, more than anything else, is going to be a hill. There'll be trees in the way. You probably will not be able to see them from the family reunion area. Probably if you want to see them close to that or in that area, you'll be able to get around mile 13 as the runners come across 72nd Street transverse, making their way up to the finish line. Then you'll be able to exit back onto Central Park West at 72nd Street, and then you'll be able to walk south on Central Park West down to the family meetup zone as your runners make their way in their mile 14 as they get their recovery back from hospital for special surgery. The medal that we've all waited so long, 3 years for the medal. I'm so excited to have the medals back.
Yeah.
Again, that's why we run the races for the swag and the medals, right? I mean, the time is secondary, but
I do it for the pictures, so
the picture.
There you go.
and the apparel actually. So it's a little bit of both.
All right. Next question. Namrata, how early will the corrals open? When do the corrals close? So while you answer that, maybe I'll put up I'm not sure we have the infographic, but we have the handy pocket guide here, so I'll go ahead and read it. So if you're in wave 1, there's wave 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you probably should know which wave you're in by now, but if you don't, you'll see that when you pick up at the experience. Again, there's a handy pocket guide. There we go. There's also the app, but for example, if I'm in wave 1, I should plan to arrive to Prospect Park about 6:15 in the morning, knowing that my wave will start at 6:20. The corral will close at 7:20. Yeah, go back in time.
5 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, that is.
Race for the race.
Take 2. Wave 1, my wave will start at 7:20, so I should plan to arrive to the corral to Prospect Park at 6:15 in the morning. And the corral will close about an hour later, so that means they wouldn't allow runners back in because sometimes runners are doing strides and warming up next to it. So, and then if I'm checking the bag check will close at 6:40, and that corral would open at 6:55. So that's an example. I'll do one more for wave 4, so going to the opposite end. If I'm wave 4, my race will start at 8:45, so I should plan to get to Prospect Park at 7:30. The bag check will close at 8:05, and the corral will close at 8:40, about 5 minutes before start time. So you want to give yourself ample time. So again, use this as a guide, but know that no matter what plan you have, you're one of 20,000+ other runners. So it's better to arrive with a little bit more time to spare than arrive and have, cut it too close.
I know at the race there will be the signage there as well. They'll be announcing when the waves open, when the waves close, how much time till the waves close. If runners out there who have done the TCS New York City Marathon, you've heard the announcer come off, Wave 3 runners corrals are now open. We're very good at making sure that we have announcements. There'll be heater boards above each corral so you'll know where to get into. So you don't have to memorize all the information that Coach Roberto just gave to you. Just kind of know when you got to be at the park to get yourself through the security. Once you're inside, we got you covered. Just listen for the announcements and get ready to have a good race.
Yeah, and I think the other part of when does the race close? So the race has a timing limit of about 3 hours and 15 minutes, and that's because we have to reopen the roads and the bridges and things like that. So what that means is, for example, going back to the handy pocket guide, is the race will close at 3 hours and 15 minutes after the last runner has started. So wave 4 will kick off at 8:45, but that might still take 15, 20, or maybe even more minutes for all the runners in that wave to cross the start line. So when I'm the last runner to cross the start line in wave 4, I might have started at 9 a.m. So that means that 3 hours and 15 minutes after that is when the road will start to close. So that means that you have plenty of time to get through the race. And it's not like you're going to start in wave 4 and they're going to close the course before you technically have started. All right, next question.
Traveling runner, for those considering driving to the start, what time do the streets close in the morning? I think the actual street closures for the race course will be closed well in advance of that. There are drop-off areas close to the entrance points of the Q and the F line. I believe in the the pocket guide in the start area, it actually has like little taxi cabs, kind of where those are. I would still follow the event guide or the app if you have it on time. It's about the key is when you want to get through security. So make sure if you are taking a car, if you're wave 1, 6:15 is when they're telling you to be at the park. I think wave 4 was 7:30. So again, look at that time and just kind of gauge your car service to get you down there in time. But understand that the streets will be closed again in some areas, especially if you're trying to traverse in certain areas. So maybe if you're bag checked, but you're coming from the east side or the west side of Brooklyn, you may have to go all the way around the park, or they may just hop you off, and you have to walk longer. So the key on that one is look at where you're staying and where you need to go, if you're bag or no bag, to get to your area. And then I would just plan a few extra minutes because they may have to drop you off a few blocks from the ideal location because you're probably not the only one doing a car service or a Uber or cab to get to the start. So if you can take public transportation, that's preferred. But if you're going to be taking a car, while it may seem quicker in some regards, as you get closer, it may get some congestion. So just plan for a few extra minutes because you don't want to be hopping out of the car 6 blocks from where you want to be and having to race to get down there.
All right, well, speaking of traveling and racing, we know that Juan has to get down to the experience, so we're going to kick it off to one last question and let Juan get going to the experience. So, last question.
Ooh. Juliana had to take a week off from a quad strain. Any ideas on how to get momentum back for Sunday? I'm hoping that your quad strain was probably after your last long run or in the first part of the taper that you've had. So in terms of a fitness standpoint, you should be kind of where you are. So I know maybe the mojo may be a little bit down because you haven't been able to run that much, but extra rest at this point is probably more important than trying to get any extra miles in, because again, you want to get to your start line as healthy as you can. Roberto, do you want to share the famous motto you have of being undertrained or overtrained?
Yeah, certainly. I think we have not said it. Yeah, I always tell people we work with or when we're doing these strategy sessions that it's better to be 10 miles undertrained than 1 mile overtrained. So what that means, not just mathematically speaking, is that it's always that 1 mile extra that we think we need to do that sends us over the edge, and then it's too late. Whereas if you're 10 miles undertrained, it's better because you could wish that you had done more, but you're still healthy. So in your case, Juliana, that you're kind of carrying a bit of a niggle, I would say there's really nothing you could do between now and Sunday to gain fitness. Maybe what you could do to ease your nerves and maybe test your leg and feel a bit more secure is go out for a shakeout run, which is something people typically do either today being Friday or tomorrow being Saturday the day before. And that should be a very short and slow run. And in your case with a quad strain, maybe try to stay on even surface. Obviously, if you're in New York City, there's potholes and things like that to look out for. But there's also the bridle path, there's Central Park, there's places where the footing's a bit better or softer. So just maybe do a little bit of shakeout run to test your quad out. But as far as fitness or anything, the hay's in the barn and you've trained really well already. So. All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you to my co-host, Ben. Thank you to our special guest, Juan. You're a legend per usual. Any parting words from you? Where could we see you next?
I mean, besides
book dropping, anything?
I mean, right? Besides, I'll be at the Experience Center this week, but I guess my last words of advice, have fun. It's this moment that you're taking in right now. It's, twice a year, like we mentioned, you get to run through Times Square, right? Take notice of your surroundings, enjoy the run, enjoy the people that you're going to be running with. We're all going to be going through the same experience in terms of running that 13.1 miles on Sunday. Well, and maybe twice if you're going to join me on Monday.
Yeah,
Right?
Juan special shakeout 13-mile run.
Yeah, but ultimately, just have fun with it. You know, it's a great feeling to be back, and you know, this will kick off a bunch of other races that we have coming down the line. So enjoy it, remember it, take lots of photos, eat lots of goos or gels from Roberto's back extra bag.
If you could catch me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't share. All right, well, thank you so much, Juan. Thank you to you folks at home watching. I know some of you are still traveling. We've put out the shout outs. We look forward to seeing many of you later today or tomorrow at the experience, and the rest of you on Sunday. Ben, Juan, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.